أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بذكر استشهاد السيدة زهراء سلام الله عليها. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear brothers and sisters. All praise to the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who grants us these opportunities that we're able to hold these commemorations. We are continuing with the program of in remembering the Lady of Lights, Lady Fatima salamullahi alayha, on the martyrdom, and commemorating these days of Azza, these Ayyam of Fatimiyya. Inshallah, we'll start our program by sending conveying condolences to the Prophet and his progeny, to the Imam of our time, Ajjalallahu Farajahu Sharif, on the martyrdom of Lady Zahra Salam alayha, and extending these condolences to all the lovers of Ahlul Bayt across the world. Inshallah, we'll start our program with the recitation of Surat Yasin, and for that I'll request my dear brothers, Brother Ilyas Alizi and Brother Pervez. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشرهم بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدروا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين وضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أأتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغني عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينفقون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون إن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون صدق الله العلي العظيم.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آية ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعده الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره ننكس في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع مشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فليحزنك قولهم إن نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم يرى الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين واضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي ينشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول لهم كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون صلوات
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. These are our dear brothers, Brother Ilyas Alizi and Brother Pervez, who are reciting the beautiful recitation of Surat Yasin. We'll proceed with the commemoration of the Thursday night program as we remember the martyrdom of Lady Zahra salamullahi alayha. For Dua Kumal, request brothers Ilyas Alizi and my apologies, brother. I think there might have been a slight mix-up on my end. So we'll have brother Ali Mahboubi and brother Miqdad, is it correct? Brother Said Hajmi? My apologies for the mix-up. I think we were supposed to have brother Miqdad for Yasin.
Sorry, no, it's Yusuf and Brother Maqdad. So Brother Maqdad will start first and then
Okay.
Brother Yusuf.
My apologies for that. Yeah, Jazakallah. So I'll request Brother Yusuf Rahman and Brother Miqdad and Brother Yusuf Rahman, inshallah, to proceed with the recitation of Dua Kumal.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم إني أسألك برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء وبقوتك التي قهرت بها كل شيء وخضع لها كل شيء وذل لها كل شيء وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء يا نور يا قدوس يا نور يا قدوس يا نور يا قدوس يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تهتك الإصم اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النقم اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعم اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تقطع الرجاء اللهم اغفر لي اللهم اغفر لي كل اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أذنبته وكل خطيئة أخطأتها اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك واستشفئ بك إلى نفسك وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك وأن توزعني شكرك وأن تلهمني ذكرك اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاضع متذلل خاشئ أن تسامحني وترحمني وتجعلني بقسمك راضيا قانئا وفي جميع الأهواء متواضعا اللهم واسألك سؤال من اشتدت فاكته وانزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته وأدم فيما عندك رغبته اللهم عظم سلطانك وعلى مكانك وخفي مكرك وظهر أمرك وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرا ولا لقبائه ساترا ولا لشيء من عمل القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك ظلمت نفسي ظلمت نفسي ظلمت نفسي وتجرأت بجهلي وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي اللهم مولاي كم من قبيح سترته وكم من فادح من البلاء أقلته وكم من إثار وقيته وكم من مكروه دفعته وكم من ثناء جميل لست أهلا له نشرته اللهم عظم بلائي وفرت بسوء حالي وقصرت بأعمالي وقعدت بأغلالي وحبسني عن نفع بعد آمالي وخدعتني الدنيا بغرورها ونفسي بجنايتها ومثالي يا سيدي فأسألك بعزتك أن لا يحجب عنك دعائي سوء أعمالي وفي آلي ولا تفضحني بخفي مع ما اطلعت عليه من سري ولا تؤاجلني بالعقوباتها على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في كل الأهواء رؤوفا وعلي في جميع الأمور عطوفا إلهي وربي من لي غيرك أسأله كشف الضر والنظر في أمري إلهي ومولى أجريت علي حكما تبعت فيه هوى نفسي ولم أهترس فيه من تزيين عدوي فغرني بما أهوى وأسأده على ذلك القضاء فتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعد حدودك وخلفت بعد أوامرك فلك الحجة علي في جميع ذلك ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاءك وألزمني حكمك وبلاؤك وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا مستغفرا منيبا مكرا مدئنا مؤترفا لا أجد مفرا مما كان مني ولا مفزعا أتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك عذري وإدخالك إياي في ساعة من رحمتك اللهم فاقبل عذري وارحم شدة ذري وفكني من شدي وثاقي يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني وركة جلدي ودكة عظمي يا من بدأ خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي هبني ابتداء كرمك وسالف برك بي يا إلهي وسيدي وربي الصلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآله. I request Brother Yusuf to inshallah proceed.
One second, please.
Yeah, no problem at all. No problem.
Assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
1 second, sorry. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أتراك معذب بنارك بعد توحيدك وبعد ما انتوى عليه قلبي من معرفتك ولا هجابه لساني من ذكرك واعتقده ضميري من حبك وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي قاضيا لربوبيتك هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تزين من ربيت أو تبعد من أدنيت أو تشرد من آويت أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيت ورحمت وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي أتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لأذامتك ساجدا وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقا وبشكرك مادها وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققا وعلى ضمائر هوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعا وعلي جوارها سأت إلى أوطان التعبد كطائئا وأشارت باستغفارك مذعنا ما هكذا ظنوا بك ولا أخبرنا بفضلك أنك يا كريم يا رب وأنت تعلم ضعفي قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها على أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه قليل مكثور يسير بقاء قصير مدته فكيف احتمالي لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض يا سيدي فكيف لي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحقير المسكين المستكين يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي لأي الأمور إليك أشكو ولما منها أذج وأبكي لأليم العذاب وشدته أم لطول البلال ومدتي فلئن صيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك فرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك فهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي صبرت على عذابك فكيف أصبر على فراقك وهبني يا إلهي صبرت على هر نارك فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجاء عفوك فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا لئن تركتني ناتقا لأذجن إليك بين أهلها ضجيج الآملين ولا أصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين ولا أبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين ولا أنادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين يا غاية آمال العارفين يا غياث المستغيثين يا غياث المستغيثين يا غياث المستغيثين يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين ويا إله العالمين أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته وذاق طعم عذابها بمعصيته وحبس بين أدباقها وجرمه وجريرته وهو يذج إليك ذجيجا مؤمل لرحمتك ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك يا مولاي فكيف يبقى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما السلاف من حلمك أم كيف تولمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك أم كيف يهرقه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه أم كيف يشتمل على زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفه أم كيف يتقلقل بين أدباقها وأنت تعلم صدقه أم كيف تزجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا ربه أم كيف يرجو فضلك في عتقه منها فتتركه فيها هيهام مزارك ذنوبك ولم معروف من فضلك ولا مشبه لما عاملت به المواهدين من برك وإحسانك فباليقين يبقى لولا ما هكمت به من تعذيب جاهدك وقضيت به من إخلاد معاندك لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما وما كان لأحد فيها مقرا ولا مقاما لكنك تقدست أسماؤك أقسمت أن تملها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين وأن تجلى ثناؤك قلت مبتدئا وتتولت بالإنعام متكرما أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون إلهي وسيدي فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالقضية التي حتمتها وهكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريته أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمت وكل ذنب أذنبت وكل قبيح أسررت وكل جهل عملت كتمته أو أعلنت أخفيته أو أظهرته وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جواره وكنت أنت رقيب عليك من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم وبرحمتك أخفيته وبفضلك سترته وأن توفر من كل خير أنزلته أو إحسان فذلت أو بر نشرت أو رزق بسطت أو ذنب تغفر أو خطأ تستر يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك رقي، يا من بيده ناسيتي، يا عليما بذري ومسكنتي، يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، أسألك بحقك وقدسك. وأعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي من الليل والنهار بذكرك مأمورة وبخدمتك موصولة، وأعمالي عندك مقبولة، حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا وهالي في خدمتك سرمدا. يا سيدي يا من عليه معولي، يا من إليه شكوت أهوالي، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، قوي على خدمتك جواره، واشدد على العظيم جوانه، وهب لي الجد في خشيتك ودوام في الاتصال بخدمتك حتى أسرها إليك في ميادين السابقين. وأسري و- وأسري إليك في المبارزين، واشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين، وادنو منك الدنو المخلصين، وأخافك مخافة الموقنين، واجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين. اللهم ومن أرادني بسوء فأرد، ومن كادني فكد، واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك ناسبا عندك، وأقربهم منزلة منك، وخصهم زلفة لديك، فإنه لا ينال بذلك إلا بفضلك. وجد لي بجودك، وأطف على بمجدك، واحفظني برحمتك، واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا وقلبي بحبك مطيما، ومن علي بحسن إجابتك، وقلني عثرتي واغفر ذلتي، فإنك قضيت على بإبادتك، ومرتهم بدوائك، وضمنت لهم الإجابة، فإليك يا ربي نسبت وجهي، وإليك يا ربي مددت يدي، فبعزتك استجد لي دعائي، وبلغني منايا، ولا تقطع من فضلك الرجاء، واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي، يا سارع الرضا اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء، فإنك فعال لما تشاء، يا من اسمه دواء وذكره شفاء وطاعته غنى. ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء وسلاهه البكاء، يا سابغ النعم، يا دافع النقام، يا نور المستوحشين في الظلام، يا عالما لا يعلم صل على محمد وآل محمد وافعل بما أنت أهله وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فاتم. أحسنتم. Thank you very much. These were brothers Miqdad and brother Yusuf Rahman. And now, inshallah, we'll proceed with the commemoration. Again, we convey our condolences to the Prophet and his progeny, and to the Imam of our time on the martyrdom of Lady Zahra, salamullahi alayha, and extending them to all the lovers of Ahlul Bayt, all the lovers of Zahra, salamullahi alayha, across the globe. Inshallah, now we'll have a recitation by a respected elder, and I'll request the Sayyid to inshallah share that recitation. So unfortunately, we're not able to hear it. What you can do is, inshallah, like after stop sharing. So just stop share from Zoom. Yeah, and then once you click on share screen on the bottom, there will be include sound, right? So you'll see share a sound. Choose that and then share the screen, and then inshallah the sound should come. So you can try again, dear brother. Inshallah, you can share the screen, and then once you click on share screen at the bottom, it'll say share sound. You can click on that and then click on the screen, inshallah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل ونعم المولى ونعم النصير يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب النجاة الأمة حضرت زهرا سلام الله علیها ای خوشان روزی که ما در خانه مادر داشتیم ای خوشان روزی که ما در خانه مادر داشتیم دیده از دیدار رخسارش منور داشتیم دیده از دیدار رخسارش منور داشتیم هر کسی جسمی عزیزش روز بردارد ولی هر کسی جسمی عزیزش روز بردارد ولی ما که نعش مادر خود را به شب برداشتیم ما که نعش مادر خود را به شب برداشتیم کاشان روزی که تنها مادر ما را زدم کاشان روزی که تنها مادر ما را زدم ما یکی را در میان کوچه یاور داشتیم ما یکی را در میان کوچه یاور داشتیم کاش محسن را نمی کشتن ادا تا ما غنچه کاش محسن را نمی کشتن ادا تا ما غنچه یادگار از آن گل رعنای پرپر داشتیم یادگاری از آن گل رعنای پرپر داشتیم کاش آن ساعت که دانستیم بی مادر شدیم کاش آن ساعت که دانستیم بی مادر شدیم جای آغوشش به خاک تیره به سر داشتیم جای آغوشش به خاک تیره به سر داشتیم این در و دیوار میگوید به حال ما که ما این در و دیوار میگوید به حال ما که ما مادر بشکسته پهلو پشت این در داشتیم مادر بشکسته پهلو بشکسته این در داشتیم مادر ما رفت از دنیا در آن حالی که ما مادر ما رفت از دنیا در آن حالی که ما گریه به حال سر قبر پیغمبر داشتیم گریه بر حال سر قبر پیغمبر داشتیم علی علیه السلام کنار قبر زهرا سلام الله علیها دوباره شب شد و ظلمت برآمد کنار قبر زهرا حیدر آمد دوباره شب شد و ظلمت برآمد کنار قبر زهرا حیدر آمد سلام ای بانوی پهلو شکسته سلام ای بانوی پهلو شکسته علی را ببین سر قبضت نشسته علی را ببین سر قبضت نشسته به خانه می روم رویت ببینم به خانه می روم رویت ببینم بریزم اشک و با زینب نشینم بریزم اشک و با زینب نشینم به خواب آرام ای مای یگانه به خواب آرام ای مای یگانه نخواهی خورد دگر تازیانه نخواهی خورد دگر تازیانه به خواب آرام ای پهلو شکسته به خواب آرام ای پهلو شکسته علی بالین قبضت نشسته علی بالین قبضت نشسته به خواب آرام با رخسار نیلی به خواب آرام با رخسار نیلی و پیغمبر نشانده جای سلی و پیغمبر نشانده جای سلی به خواب آرام ای نور دو عینم به خواب آرام ای نور دو عینم که من شبها پرستار حسینم که من شبها پرستار حسینم که لعنت الله علی القوم الظالمین
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد
اللهم صل على
اللهم صل
محمد
على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
أعظم الله أجوركم. That was a recitation from an elder. May Allah bestow him a long, healthy life and all the community members and keep them all protected. Inshallah, now we will proceed with the short session again for today. The session that we will cover will be on the najasat, and for that we will start the discussion by a video clip, a short video clip for today, and then after that we will have the Kahoot. The Kahoot will focus on, as we are commemorating the Lady of Light, inshallah the Kahoot questions will focus on that. It'll be different to the questions. There'll just be a couple questions similar to the ones from the previous Kahoot, but all the other remaining 10 questions will be different. So inshallah we'll learn a bit more about the Lady of Light. So we'll get started on a short brief video clip on the najasat.
Ahkam in brief. Najas things. And in this video, we will get to know the most important najas things, or impurities according to the Islamic laws. Almost everything around us in this beautiful world is considered tahir, or you can say ritually pure. But in the Islamic laws, there are very few things that are considered najas or ritually impure. We have 8 common najas things around us: urine and feces, blood, dead body, semen, dog, pig, and alcoholic liquors. So let's get to know each of them a bit better, starting at the top of the list. Number 1 and 2, urine and feces. Is it from all the animals? No, not from all, but from some of them. For example, the urine and feces of sheep, cows, and fishes is not najas, but from cats and dogs it is najas. So what is the difference between these types of animals? To be able to distinguish between them, it's important to know a bit more about 2 concepts: halal meat and gushing blood. In the Islamic laws, animals are divided into 2 categories: those whose blood gushes from their veins, meaning that if their vein is cut, blood pours out forcefully, and the second category are those whose blood doesn't gush out. Now the second concept, halal meat. Again, the animals are split into 2 categories. Either we are allowed to eat them or not allowed to. To know which animal is halal or haram for us to eat is a broad topic. For more info, please refer to the Islamic laws book. Alright then, back to the najas things. So, the urine and the feces of all animals with gushing blood and whose meat is haram is considered najas. Remember again, haram meat plus having gushing blood. So, according to this, the urine and the feces of lion is najas. The same for monkeys, rats, cats, rhinos, and etc. But it's not najas for sheep, cows, camels, goats, and even for a buffalo, since its meat is halal for us to eat. Now a question: is the dropping of an eagle najas or not? You have 3 seconds to answer. Yes, no, maybe yes, maybe no, none of the above. Well, the right answer is that according to some of our scholars, it's not najas, even though the eagle's blood gushes out and its meat is haram for us to eat. You know, some scholars exclude all birds from this categorization. The third item is blood. This includes the blood of human beings and any animal whose blood gushes out of their veins. Once the blood is out of the body, it's considered najas. And the blood of those animals that doesn't gush out, such as fishes and insects, is not najas. So, another question. Sometimes when we buy halal meat, we see some blood on the meat. Is this blood najas? This blood is considered tahir. Since the animal was slaughtered according to the Islamic laws, only the blood which comes out from the neck during the slaughtering is najas. Once the animal is no longer alive and the blood stops gushing out, what remains inside the body is tahir. The fourth item is the dead body. Again, that of a human being or of any animal whose blood gushes out. If an animal of this category dies in a manner other than that prescribed by the Islamic law, like in an accident or from illness, it will be considered as mayyit or dead body, no matter if its meat is halal or haram for us to eat. The mayyit or the dead body and most of its parts are najas. For example, the skin, meat, leather and whatever is made from them is najas. But the dead bodies of animals who don't gush blood, such as fishes, are not najas. The fifth najas substance is the semen of human beings and of every gushing blood animal. Number 6 and 7 of the najasat things are dogs and pigs, and all their parts, dead or alive. But note that these 2 animals, like all other animals, are respected in Islam and their rights should be observed. Number 8 of najasat is the alcoholic liquor, made from grapes which intoxicates. Some scholars consider all types of intoxicants najas, whether it's from grape or not. Now that we know what the najis things are, let's review some general rules. Number 1. Being najis does not necessarily mean being dirty. Some things could be completely clean, even sterile, yet still be considered najis, and vice versa. For example, you could wash and disinfect a pig perfectly, however, it still remains najis. Number 2. If these najis things touch any wet object, they make it najis. If both objects are completely dry, nothing would happen and the impurity doesn't transmit. Number 3. Everything is tahir, unless you are absolutely sure that it's najis. So, I guess it's najis, or I doubt it's pure, or I think it's najis have absolutely no value, and we shouldn't pay any attention to these doubts, and even we are not obliged to investigate about it.
So that was a short clip on the najasat, or the impurities. Now, inshallah, we'll proceed with the kahoot, and we'll be sharing it shortly. As I mentioned, the purpose or the topic of kahoot today, sorry, will focus on the Lady of Light, sallallahu alayha. So you can join in using the pin that you see on the screen. So the pin is 4917152. So we'll just give a few minutes or a bit more time for people to join in. Inshallah, while people are joining us, we're commemorating the Arza of the Zahra, a few poetic verses. Andhere, andhere, yatimon se chup kar, sare qabr Zahra li ro rahe hain. अंधेरे अंधेरे यतीमों से छुप कर सरे कब्र ज़हरा ली रो रही है तुम्हारी मुसीबत भुलाऊंगा कैसे मैं बच्चों से आंसू छुपाऊंगा कैसे तुम्हें याद करके जो रोएंगे बच्चे मैं बच्चों को अपने मनाऊंगा कैसे तसव्वुर में ज़हरा से करके ये बातें झुकाए सर अपना अली रो रही अंधेरे अंधेरे यतीमों से छुप कर सरे कब्र ज़हरा ली रो रही कभी आंसुओं को छुपाती है ज़ैनब कभी भाइयों को उठाती है ज़ैनब कभी घर के आंगन में आती है ज़ैनब कभी माँ के हुजरे में जाती है ज़ैनब कभी रो के दुख या ये करती है नाहा उठो अम्मा फ़ैज़ादी रो रही अंधेरे अंधेरे यतीमों से छुप कर सरे कब्र ज़हरा रो रही है शहर नबी में समा करबला का न कोई तसल्ली न कोई दिलासा तरसते हैं घर में यतीमान ज़हरा कोई आके देता नहीं उनको पुरसा हुसैन व हसन का कहीं पर है गिरिया कहीं मेरे मौला अली रो रहे अल्लाह जुल्लुकुम. Again, the purpose of the Kahoot is so that we learn about Islam, about the rulings, about jurisprudence, about the Lady of Light, Salamullah alayha, in this particular Kahoot. So inshallah we'll begin with this Kahoot. So the first question is, what was the name of the house that Amir al-Mu'minin had constructed for Lady Zahra to cry in? Was it the chamber of loneliness? Was it the house of sorrows? Was it the house of Zahra, or was it the house of tears? So unfortunately, the people of Medina would complain to Amir al-Mu'minin that the Lady of Light would cry there the day or the whole day. And so he had created or built this house outside the city where she would be able to go and remember her mourner, her father, and the atrocities that she was afflicted with. So house of sorrows, which in Arabic means Bayt al-Ahzan. So currently we have player C in the scoreboard. The next question, how is the leadership different of Lady Maryam alayhi salam and Lady Fatima alayhi salam? We spoke about this briefly when explaining this question, but this was not the same question. So is it that Lady of Maryam is the leader of all women of all time? Is it that Lady Fatima salam alayha is the leader of women of all time? Is it Lady Maryam is the leader of the women of paradise, or is it that the Lady of Fatima is the leader of women of her time? So yes, the actual answer is that Lady Fatima salam alayha is not just the leader of the women at her time, but at all time. And indeed, she is the woman of the paradise as well, the leader of all women in all creation. Sayyidatun Nisa al-Alameen. So we have currently the Kahoot named FZT, currently in the lead. The next question, what was her will to Imam Ali alayhi salam? Was it that my corpse should be carried to the graveyard at night? Was it, oh Ali, we will personally perform my funeral rites? Was it those who have displeased me should not be allowed to attend my funeral? Or did her will contain all these segments? So this was a question that was actually similar to the Kahoot that was done last time, or on the last, the date or the program closer to the 13th Jamadi al-Ula. So yes, all of them are phrases from her wasiyah, her will. So FCT still in the lead. The next question, how many children, born and unborn, did the Lady of Light have with Amir al-Mu'minin? Was it 3? Was it 5? Was it 7, or was it 1? How many children did the Lady of Light have with Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi afdal salatu alayhi wassalam? So the correct answer is 5. You have Lady Zainab salamullah alayha, Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, Lady Zainab salamullah alayha, Kulthum alayha salam, and Muhsin, who was the unborn child who was killed as those oppressors had broke into the house of Amir, and Lady Zaha salamullah alayha was crushed between the wall and the door, and as a result of that, her unborn child Muhsin was shaheed. So currently we have player C in the lead. Next question. How would the Prophet show respect to the Lady of Light, alayhi salam? What would the Prophet do in order to show respect to the Lady of Light? Would he kiss her hands? Would he get up from where he was sitting? Sorry, apologies for the typo. He would get up from where he was sitting, and he would stand. He would send salutations. So he would actually do all of them. Right? People saw the Prophet doing all of these things. He would kiss the lady's hand, of Light's hands. If the lady were to enter a certain gathering, he would stand up and offer her his own place while others would be present, and he would say salam He would pass by the door and would say salam to her as well. So we have currently FZT currently in the lead. The next question, what is Fadak? Was it a piece of land given to Lady Zahra by the Prophet himself? Was it a Jewish fort? Was it the first, what was the place where the first caliph was chosen, or was it the name of a sword? So what is Fadak? So it was a piece of land given to Lady Zaha salamun alayha. The Jewish fort that we find, obviously there's several, but the one that we find that is attributed in Islamic history is the Khaybar, the place apparently where the first caliph was chosen. Again, obviously the plotting was done much before that, but the apparent place after the death of the Prophet where people had chosen the caliph was Saqifa. And the name of a sword, there are several swords in Islam. So we still have FZT currently in the lead. The next question. What was the age at the time of Lady Zahra? What was the age of Lady Zahra alayhi salam at the time of her mother's death? Was it 12? Was it 7? Was it 18 or was it 10? So how old was Lady Zahra alayhi salam when her mother passed away? So according to traditions, she was 7 years old. Or some say 5 as well, but it wasn't older than that, older than 8. So she was actually around 7 or 8 or even 5 if you would like to consider that. And she was 18 at the time of her shahada. So she lived almost roughly 10 or slightly more years after her mother. So FZT still in the lead, followed by Naya, followed by Layla. The next question, which famous tradition did Hazrat Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari narrate from Lady Zahra alayhi salam? Was it the sermon of Shaqshaqiyya? Was it the golden chain, the hadith of golden chain? Was it the hadith of Qaqalain? Or was it hadith Kisa? Which famous tradition did Hazrat Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari, the companion of the Prophet, narrate from Lady Zahra? So yes, it was the hadith of Kisa. Sermon Shaqshaqiyya was one of the famous sermons that we can find in Nahj al-Balagha of Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam that Ibn Abbas had quoted, narrated from him, where he had openly spoken about the caliph at that time. The hadith golden chain is the famous silsilat Zahab, a famous golden tradition of Imam Rida alayhi salam, which he quotes from his father, who quotes from his father, all the way to the Prophet, and which is Kalimatullah Hisni, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that. Hadith al-Thaqalain, the famous that Allah's Prophet had left behind 2 weighty things. Kitabullah wa Itrata, his progeny, and the Book of God. And Hadith Kisa is the event that we know of Ahlul Kisa from. So FCT still in the lead. True or false? The grave of Lady Zahra alayhi salam was demolished. Is this true or false? So yes, unfortunately, the grave of Lady Zahra alayhi salam, after years and many years after that, was also demolished. And for the hatred, as you understand, for the belief or the incorrect beliefs that they had, that they massacred or they destroyed the graves of the wives of the Prophet and the grave of the Lady Zahra alayhi salam and other. If we were to take one of those places to be Jannat al-Baqi, they did demolish her grave. So FZT still in the lead. The next question, at the time of her birth, who was present with Lady Khadija alayhi salam? So at the time of the birth of Lady Fatima alayhi salam, who was present with Lady Khadija alayhi salam? Was it Sarah, wife of Prophet Ibrahim? Was it Lady Maryam alayhi salam, the mother of Hazrat Isa? Was it Asiya bint Malahim, the wife of Fir'aun? Or was it all of them? So all of them were present at the time of birth, at the birth of Lady Fatima alayhi salam. Obviously, they were with her, accompanied Lady Khadija at the time of birth. They had lived their life at the time of their respective times, but they were present at the birth of Lady Zahra alayhi salam to help Lady Khadija alayhi salam. So we still have currently FZT in the lead. And the second last question, what does Abiha mean? So the Lady of Light is known as Abiha. What does that mean? Is it mother of her own father? Is it the mother of the Imams? Is it the mother of the Ummah, the entire nation? Or is it all of them? So what does Abiha mean? So mother of her own father. That is what Abiha means. That Lady of Light was the mother of her own father. And the last question, again for tonight, is who said this famous saying about her, that in the daughter of the Holy Prophet is an exemplar for me? This was a question from the last one as well. But khair, it indeed holds, and inshallah we can walk on the footsteps. So who said this? Was it Amir al-Mu'mineen? Was it Lady Khadija al-Kubra? Was it the Prophet himself? Or was it Imam al-Mahdi Ajjalallahu Wajh al-Sharif? Fi ibnat Rasulullah li uswatan hasana. So it was Imam al-Mahdi Ajjalallahu Wajh al-Sharif who said this. Again, there are numerous traditions from the Aimma alayhim salam who speak about the greatness of Lady of Light. One such where the Imam says that we are the Hujjat of Allah in the creation, and our mother, Lady Fatima alayhi salam, is the Hujjat upon us. Indeed, showing or the significance or the great stature that this lady has. So for today's Kahoot, we had our lucky Kahoot named Lucky, and alaykum salam, Shaykh. And player C in the second position, and then the first one was where we had the Kahoot name FCT. So we thank you all for taking part in this, and inshallah, without any further delay, I'd like to request our respected Shaykh Shafiq Hudda to address this majlis Azza without salawat Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allah salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Is the sound okay, Sayyidina?
Yes, alaykum salam. Yes, Shaykh. It's perfect.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaykum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين خالق السماوات والأرض إلها واحدا أحدا صمدا لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين رحمة للعالمين طه وياسين بالقاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين ورحمة الله على محبيهم ولعنة الله على أعدائهم وقاتليهم وغاصب حقوق حقهم ومنكر فضائلهم أجمعين من يومنا هذا إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتبارك في كتابه الحكيم وفرقانه المجيد وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصلي لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر. صلوات على محمد وعلى محمد.
صلى على محمد وآله.
Respected sisters and brothers, my youngsters, my elders, organizers, Assalamu alaikum jamia wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace and blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be upon all of you and all your near and dear ones as we continue these online discussions. One of the things that I wanted to thank both Sayyid Hashmat and Sayyid Taha for is the fact that as I've been sort of monitoring different communities across Ontario and actually between Ontario and Quebec as well, some places have actually gone on to cancel their programs. And I appreciate your leadership and your vision that you did not cancel the programs, you merely moved them to online. Of course, this is not the ideal situation, but it is better than not having a program and to cancel it. And sadly, like I said, that often what happens is psychologically, it takes us a long time to recover from a canceled program and then to restart it when inshallah things are better. So may Allah bless you for that, and may Allah reward you and all the participants who continue to grace the occasions. As we are marking today the conclusion of at least this year's Ayyam-e-Fatimiyya, There's a couple of things that I wanted to, inshallah, finish up with. Mashallah, in the Kahoot, you mentioned some of the names, at least Biha, and titles of Hazrat Fatima al-Zahra, salamullahi alayha, peace be upon her, and her noble lineage and family. And so today, like I said, I'm just going to put a few things together, inshallah. Of course, by no means can we say that we have covered the full life of Hazrat Zahra, or the full, everything that was in her life and a part of her beautiful existence on this temporal world. But at least we've tried to cover as much as we possibly can. One of the things that doesn't get talked about is the nobility, the noble character of the Fatima Zahra at the time of the most difficult moments for Rasulullah, with Rasulullah. And in particular, one episode comes to mind where the Battle of Uhud, which was one of the most difficult battles, one of the earliest battles, and one of the most difficult battles that the Prophet had to face at the beginning or at the outset of Islam. And this was the battle whereby the Prophet was actually injured both on his forehead, and some of his teeth were knocked out because of the enemy's onslaught. And the shayateen actually put out a slogan. They put out a rumor that, this is one of the reasons why rumors are so dangerous, not only in Islam, in humanity as well. The shayateen put out a rumor that Muhammad has been killed. When this was heard by some of the Muslims, it was narrated that they ran away from the battlefields. They ran so far away that it took them 3 days to come back to Medina. And when somebody asked Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, Ya Ali, when you heard this, that Muhammad has been martyred, Muhammad has been killed, why did you remain on the battlefield when many others ran away? Many other very prominent individuals ran away. Why did you stay behind? Imam replied very beautifully. He says that those who ran away, their slogan became, if Muhammad is dead, why should we fight? If Muhammad is dead, why should we basically continue fighting? They ran away. My slogan was, if Muhammad has been killed, then why should I stay alive? La ilaha illallah. So the Prophet was injured in this battle. This was also the battle that in which the first one who was called Sayyidul Shuhada, Abu Abdullah al-Hussein is very commonly known as Sayyidul Shuhada, the chief of the martyrs, the leader of the martyrs. The very first one who was called Sayyidul Shuhada was Hazrat Hamza, the uncle of the Holy Prophet of Islam. And it was in the Battle of Uhud that Hazrat Hamza was killed. So at the time that this rumor became known, and Hazrat Fatima, along with the aunt of Rasulullah, Safiya bint Abdul Muttalib, came running into the battlefield, what did they find? They found that the Prophet was already on the battlefield where the Hazrat Hamza had been killed, and where some of the other companions had been martyred as well. And it was a very sad sight, because the first thing that Hazrat Rasul had done, the Holy Prophet of Islam had done, was that he basically he saw that the body of Hazrat Hamza had been desecrated. After his shahadat, after his martyrdom, the enemies had actually mutilated his body. They had cut off his fingers, they had taken off his clothes. One of the, Allahu Akbar, it's so difficult to even mention, but Hinda, the wife of Abu Sufyan, actually cut open the intestinal area of Hazrat Hamza, took out the liver of Hazrat Hamza, and was sucking on it as well. Allahu Akbar. There's ghastly things that had happened. When the Prophet saw his aunt and Hazrat Fatima Zahra, salamullahi alayha, who was still young at the time, he immediately took his abba and covered the body of his uncle Hazrat Hamza. And this was the pain to the Prophet, what had happened to Hazrat Hamza. But the pain to Fatima Zahra, salamullahi alayha, that was the blood that was gushing out from the Holy Prophet. The Prophet's beard had been bloodied. It was covered as if it was henna. His teeth had been broken. There was blood all over his outfit. And Amirul Mu'mineen had come rushing there. He tried to put some water on the wound of the Holy Prophet, but this did not stop the bleeding. Imagine what Fatima Zahra, being just a child, being a young child, mashallah, what she did was she took some rope, burned the rope, took the ashes, and put the ashes of that of the rope on the wounds of the Prophet, and that was able to. I mean, she was known as a nurse to her beloved father, and she had cried immensely when she saw her father in this state. So one of the things we see in the life of Hazrat Zahra salamullahi alayha, that she had often gone through difficulties, had often gone through such painful moments. When the people would throw garbage at her father, when the people would abuse her father, when the people would beat her father, the people had done these kinds of things to her father, and oftentimes the Prophet would be crying. One of the things she said when she was attending to the wound of the Prophet, she says, "May Allah curse those who have harmed the Prophet of Allah." Imagine for a moment that even as a child, she was looking at the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not just her father as a father, but as a messenger of Allah. And that is one of the reasons why many ulama have said that there's a very deep meaning in the khutbah of Fatima Zahra when she went in front of the first Khalifa and in the presence of the first Khalifa, when she had given a khutbah. There's a lot of depth in that khutbah, and Hazrat Marhum Ayatullah al-Uzma, Shaykh Sayyid Mar'ashi Najafi, Allah maqam, Allah elevate his status. Ayatollah Mar'ashi Najafi has actually addressed the ulama in his wasiyah, in his will, and he says, read and ponder over the khutbah of Fatima Zahra, because even ulama, even scholars have not fully grasped the khutbah of Hazrat Fatima Zahra salamullahi alayhi. Imagine the way she has addressed the Khalifa and addressed the issue of Fadak, the issue of the Risala, the issue of the Haqq of Ali Murtada alayhi salatu wassalam. There's lots and lots in there. But she was such a noble lady and a caring child for the Rasul of Allah, for the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then I want to go to one other part in today's discussion before we come to the Masaib of the Holy Lady of Light. And that was the part where prior to her marriage, at the age of 9, the riwayah, the historians mentioned that she had blossomed into a young lady. She was way more mature than 9-year-olds at her time or in any other time. And mashallah, she was a developed young individual, young lady. And so, and even in various parts of the world, marriages take place at a very young age. And so she would get proposals from many of the Arabs at the time of Rasulullah. And even some prominent companions of the Holy Prophet had come to ask her hand in marriage. And oftentimes the Prophet would either, say that either she's too young, she's not ready yet. And in some cases, he would just remain silent. He would just not even entertain that. And it was narrated that in very famous Ahl Sunnah wal Jamaat narrations, even in Tabari's Tarikh history, he narrates that Abu Bakr himself came to the Holy Prophet, sat down and said that, Ya Rasulullah, my service to Islam, my services to you. Right away, the Prophet, and in fact, one of the things that we have to remember is that we should never highlight our own services to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to the Messenger, to Islam. First of all, we don't know if any of those services are worthy of acceptance or not, number one. Number two, one should not speak about their deeds, because when we have done something, it should be forgotten and finished. Khalas, it's not supposed to be mentioned unless there's a purpose that Allah or the Messenger have allowed it. So anyways, so he comes there, right away the Prophet says, Abu Bakr, what do you want? What do you want? He says, I have come to ask for the hand of Fatima Zahra in marriage. And the Prophet remains silent. He just ignores the whole situation until such time that the first Khalifa to be leaves. He goes to Umar ibn Khattab. He tells him that I proposed to the Holy Prophet for the hand of Fatima, but the Prophet just ignored me. Umar says, okay, let me go and try. Umar goes to the house of the Prophet, sits down, again narrates that, I want to, Ya Rasulullah, my services to Islam, my services to you. And so the Prophet again asks him, what do you want, Umar? What is it that you want? And Umar replies, I have come to ask for the hand of Fatima Zahra for marriage. Again, the Prophet just basically doesn't attend to it, doesn't even answer the dilemma. And Umar left after a few minutes, went to Abu Bakr, they had a conversation, and Umar says to Abu Bakr that it seems like the messenger of Allah is waiting for some directive from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in fact, it was narrated again by non-Shia references that Abu Bakr at the end of his own life was narrating that there were certain things that I wish I hadn't done or that I had wish I had received, of which one of them was the recitation of Surah Barat. Surah Barat, Surah Tawbah, was something that the Prophet had initially told Abu Bakr, go and recite this to the kuffar. This is the only surah of the Holy Quran that does not start, Surah Tawbah, Surah Barat, with this, does not start with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Initially, the Prophet had sent Abu Bakr to go and recite this before the kuffar. After a few minutes, Jibreel Amin comes to the Holy Prophet and says, Ya Rasulullah, either you go and narrate it before in front of the kuffar or somebody from you. Somebody from you, either yourself or somebody from you. At that time, immediately, Rasulullah sends Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Muttaqin, Ali ibn Abi Talib, alayhi salatu wassalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He says, Ya Ali, you take the surah and go and recite it before the kuffar. So that means that the Prophet was, Allah Ta'ala was telling the Prophet that either he himself or somebody who is from Rasulullah, and only one who was from Rasulullah would be none other than Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. Muhammad. Abu Bakr says, this was one time that I wish I had that chance. Secondly, I wish I could have married Fatima Zahra. And the third thing he says I regret was taking the property of Fadak. In fact, some historians have narrated that he was about to return the property of Fadak, which was a gift given by Rasulullah to Fatima Zahra, salamullahi alayha, a very fertile, noble piece of land. And he says that I was about to return it. And when he was about to return that Fadak, Umar ibn Khattab comes and says, what are you doing? He said, I'm returning Fadak to Fatima. This is her haq, there's no doubt about it. And Umar reminds him that if you return this haq, if you accept the sadaqat, the truthfulness of Fatima Zahra on the issue of Fadak, tomorrow she will come and say that the Khilafat also does not belong to you. The Khilafat is also belonging to Abu al-Hasan Ali ibn Abi Talib, not to you. What will you do at that time? And so the lust of power and importance and the wealth and the treasury became too overwhelming. He rescinded that about to be made correction in his action. So what we find is that Hazrat Fatima Zahra was, very noble in her. In fact, one of the alims I was listening to, Shaykh Muhammad al-Hilli, he said something very beautiful in his lecture on Ayyam Fatima, on the Shahadat night of Hazrat Fatima Zahra last night. He said that imagine this is a household, the household of Rasulullah, the household of the Holy Prophet was such that if somebody would have come, to Fatima Zahra, salamullahi alayha, and says, Ya bint Rasulullah, I am in need, I want Fadak, I would like Fadak, I am in need of Fadak. This is the household that would have happily given Fadak over to him. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali. Allahu Akbar. This is the household that has given everything they had in the way of Allah. She would have not given it. But the way they stole it from her, that was the problem. And that is why she went before the Khalifa. And that is why she went to demand her haq. Because giving is one thing. Stealing it and usurping it is another. There's a whole reason which I've mentioned in past discussions over the year and a half that I've talked at Ayyam Fatima about why Fadak was important, why it was so strategic, what it was done, what the Khalifa wanted to do by seizing it from Fatima Zahra. Basically, the whole issue of the financial independence of the Sayyid and the Bani Fatima would have been very clearly the end result. But khair. Anyways, so one of the things that he had mentioned is that I wish I could marry Fatima. When the time came and Ali ibn Abi Talib himself, so many people had asked him that why are you not asking, why are you not proposing to the Holy Prophet for the hand of Fatima Zahra alayhi salam? Imam Ali mentions that he is very shy. And finally, when some very close companions, noble companions said to him, Ya Ali, this is something definitely we are sure that the Prophet would consider. So when Imam Ali alayhi salam came and respectfully sat in the presence of the Prophet, he says, Ya Rasulullah, I am requesting the hand of Fatima Zahra. The Prophet lit up. And one of the things that the Prophet made very clear in all the cases, the Prophet always took the message to Fatima Zahra, because one of the things that Islam has put a great deal of emphasis on is that the lady must make the decision of her marriage herself. Of course, she should consult her father. She needs to get the permission of her father, but the ultimate decision belongs to the lady. A father or a brother or somebody else cannot make a decision on behalf of a lady. That is something that Islam put a lot of emphasis on. And till today, the aqd, the tazweej, the zawaj, the nikah ceremony is initiated by the lady. The meher is decided by the lady. The conditions are set by the lady. And the man's role is to say, qabiltu, or I accept. Okay? This is something laid down. The Prophet is very happy, and when he goes to Fatima Zahra with the proposal of Imam Ali, Hazrat Fatima's silence was the answer enough. And her silence was her acceptance. Rasulullah was also elated, and the heavens were beginning to celebrate and everything. But the Prophet asked Imam Ali, what do you have for the meher? What do you have for meher? The dowry, the gift that the husband-to-be must give to the wife-to-be. It's a gift, okay? It is not a purchase price. It's a gift that is given. And unlike, and sadly, in some of the villages or areas in India and various other places, even in Africa, the dowry has to be given by the daughter-to-be, by the wife-to-be, to the husband-to-be. This is something that Islam does not accept, does not recognize. The dowry or the meher, the meheriyya, is something that the husband-to-be has to give to the wife-to-be. Imam Ali is asked, what meher do you have? The Imam says, Ya Rasulullah, you know that I have nothing. I have very little worldly possessions. I have my sword, I have my camel, and I have my shield, my defense shield. These are the only three possessions I have. Imagine for a moment. I often ask fathers whose daughters are of marriageable age, and I've had this conversation many times. What do you look for? What are you looking for in your son-in-law to be? When your damad, your son-in-law, is approaching your to be, or somebody approaches you, what do you ask? You ask, what is your job? What is your income? What assets do you have? How much property do you have? Do you own your house? Are you renting your house? Are you living with your parents? What car do you have? What stability do you have? How much is your RSPs? What gold bars do you have? What, all these questions. After that, we might ask, is he a good moment? Is he praying? Is he fasting? Does he do his wajibat? Does he refrain from his muharramat? Does he go to the casino? Na'udhu billah. Does he drink? Na'udhu billah. Sometimes they'll ask, does he smoke? This and that. What bad habits does he have? But all those come later. First, I want to know how much flus he has. What is his net worth? Yeah, what is his net worth? So imagine for a moment, if somebody the caliber of Ali ibn Abi Talib was to ask for our daughter's hand in marriage, and we find out that he has nothing else except his sword, his camel, and his shield, what would we have said as a father? Thank you very much. Sorry. She's too young. She's not ready yet. This and that and the other. Rasulullah looked at Iman, Taqwa, the Taqwa of Ali ibn Abi Talib. He looked at the daraja, he looked at the history of Ali ibn Abi Talib. He looked at the loyalty and the wafadari and the servitude that Ali ibn Abi Talib had for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he says, Ya Ali, what do you have? He says, I have these three things. The Prophet says, you need your sword. This is your whole defense for Islam and to protect yourself and your family. The sword you need. The camel you need, because the camel helps you in going from A to B. The camel transports you. The camel also helps in the irrigation of the fields and what have you. He says the shield is the only thing that you need to go and sell. Sell it and then bring me the money that you get, and that will be acceptable as your meher. Some say 50 or 60 dirhams Mullah received for his that shield. And he gave that to Rasulullah. He said, this is the man. The Prophet happily accepted it. One of the things that we find as a reason for marriages not taking place, sometimes the mehers that our daughters are demanding, or the father on behalf of the daughter is demanding, are very, very high. My dear sisters and brothers, please, our Prophet has told us, the Imam have told us, the best marriage is the one in which the mahr is modest, is simple, is affordable, so that we do not stop marriages from happening because somebody can't afford it. Rahbar Ayatollah Khamenei in one of his khutbahs has mentioned, he says one of the reasons we're having the problems of social problems in Iran is because the mahars are too high. They're too costly, and the husbands to be, the young boys cannot afford it. Bring that down, because the better, the greater your daughter is, the lower meher she will demand. You see? Okay, the Prophet does this, the marriage takes place. Some of the ladies of Medina, some of the elders of Medina are crying that, oh, there should be a fancy way marriage. This is the daughter, the only daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Abu Muhammad Ordani in his book Fatima the Gracious describes how the ladies were saying that we need to sprinkle this and we need to have that and we need to have all these things, blessings and almonds here and various nuts here and gold and silver. And the Prophet says there will be none of that. We will have a simple marriage. The walima was there, the marriage was there, very simple ceremony. Walima is very strongly recommended, mustahab, when a child is born, when somebody comes back from Hajj, and when a marriage takes place. Khair. So basically the wedding was done very simply. She accepted the simple mahar and the marriage took place. The beauty of the marriage of Ali and Fatima alayhim wassalatu wassalam was that they were there to care for each other regardless of how simple they had. The Prophet himself actually gave 64 dirhams to some of the companions, including Abu Dhar and Salman. He says, go to the bazaar and bring a few things that they will need for their house. The Prophet himself paid for these things. From the 64 dirhams, about 18 items for the household, including a shirt for Amir al-Mu'mineen, a pot, a coffee grinder, coffee bean grinder, and various things were bought by with this 64 dirhams. And Rasulullah gifted that to a cloth, what we call a blanket for them to sit and lie down on. And so this is what the Prophet bestowed upon Ali and Fatima alayhi salam. What I'm emphasizing, what I want to emphasize to my sisters and brothers, my elders and my youngsters, simplicity is the key to a happy family life. Don't be over extravagant. Yes, of course, live according to your means, but be careful. Don't overdo it. Don't, go, in English, they say, go along with the Smiths, living with the Smiths, or, keeping up to par with the Johnsons. What that means is if they buy a bigger car, I'll buy a bigger car. If they buy a bigger house, I'm going to buy a bigger house. If they get a better, carpet, I'm going to get an even better carpet. These are the kinds of things that cause families to be stressed and have to take loans, go into debt, and causes a cycle of ultimate or eventual poverty. Somewhere, somehow, somebody has to pay for all these things. And so this is something that we have to be very, very careful of. Live within our means. I'm not telling you not to live nicely. I'm not telling you not to live comfortably, but don't overdo it. Don't be extravagant. Inna Allah la yuhibbul musrifun. That, Allah does not love those who do asraf, whether it is in food, whether it is wastage, whether it is in the size of the tools and things that we have, all of that. Anything that is wastage is not recommended. Sometimes, we do parties even for our family members or our marriages or when somebody is born or somebody's birthday. We go around spending so much money, doing so many big, big things. And, because somebody else's birthday was so extravagant, my son's birthday will be even better than that. My daughter's birthday will be even better than that. They had an 8-inch cake. I'm going to have a 12-inch cake. You see what's happening? Allahu Akbar. Look at the life of the Ahlul Bayt. They are not there just to be read about and listened to in majlises and in Ayyam Fatimiyya. They are lives that have to be followed upon. And our ultimate as Muslims, our ultimate goal and destination is the akhirah. So let's focus on that as well. There's a beautiful hadith. Qala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Holy Prophet of Islam has been quoted as saying to Fatima Zahra, Ya Fatimatu, man salli alayki, ghafarahu Allahu, walhaqahu bi, haythu kuntum min al-jannati. That, oh Fatima, whoever sends blessings upon you, oh Fatima, they will be in paradise, a place wherever I am. Man salla alayki. Whoever sends salams on you. We become so busy, we forget sometimes on a daily basis. Try to make it a habit, my dear sisters and brothers. After all your namazes, each set of namaz, Fajr, or you've got Dhuhrain, you've got Maghribain. After that, make sure you take time. You do, mashallah, all of you, I'm sure, recite the Tasbih Fatima Zahra without moving. You recite your istighfar, yes, alhamdulillah. But after you finish all that, take a minute or two to recite salams on the Ahlul Bayt, especially Fatima Zahra salamullahi alayha. The Holy Prophet, we say Assalamu alayki ya Rasulullah, Assalamu alayki ya Abu Abdullah, Assalamu alayki ya Bint Rasulullah. Fatima Zahra, make sure we don't forget to say salam to her as well. And you'll see the barakah, you'll see the blessings. Then you just heard the Prophet say. The reference, if anybody wants it, is actually Biharul Anwar. I kept it with me. Biharul Anwar, volume 97, page 194 is where this hadith can be found if you want to look it up and check it for yourself. So you don't have to believe me, but you can check it for yourself that Allama Majlis has narrated. So this was the illuminated life of Fatima Zahra, a life of simplicity, a life of patience, a life of suffering as well. And at the young age of 18, she was killed. She left this world. After all these difficulties, imagine if I was to start the Masaib of Fatima Zahra. There's been a number of books. One is called Baytul Ahzan, House of Sorrows, which has been written about her suffering. Another one is a small book that is called Oppression on the Ahlul Bayt. My dear sisters and brothers, this book was actually an eye-opener to me personally. Because oftentimes I've heard that there was suffering of Hazrat Fatima Zahra, but the author of Kauthar publications, Qadi and Kauthar publications, actually go into this small booklet into detail, even from Sunni references and non-Shia references, talking about how they came to the house of Fatima Zahra. They demanded Ali to come out. Imam Ali replied that I have promised Rasulullah that I will not leave until I have finished one job that Prophet of Islam, Rasulullah, my cousin, my brother, had told me, and that is to compile the Quran and Majid. I have promised if I will not leave my house except for Salah, for this reason, I will not come out and give bayat to anybody. I am not going to give bayat to the Khalifa. They said that we will burn the house down. Fatima Zahra calls out that you cannot burn the house down when I am in there. My children are there. And they say that we don't care who is in there. We will burn the house down. And ultimately, they burn the house of Fatima Zahra. The door is burnt down. The door falls on Hazrat Fatima Zahra. Her ribs are fractured. Baby Mohsen, who was in her womb, has been killed. And it's narrated that Mal'un Kunfuz takes a whip and hits Hazrat Fatima Zahra, damages her eye and her forehead are bleeding at that time. These difficulties are narrated in history by all the narrators who have narrated from those last moments of the life of Fatima Zahra, until such time that Hazrat Fatima Zahra is injured, but Amirul Mu'mineen notices that she has not been complaining. All those who know what has happened to Fatima Zahra, the ladies are saying, Ya bint Rasulullah, what have they done to you? They try to take care of her, but the pain is felt inside her. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. One time she tells her cousin Asma ibn Umays, I'm going into my room. I want to be left alone. I will be reciting the Quran. I will be doing the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you stop hearing the dhikr, understand that I have left this world. Asma is listening by the door. The beautiful voice of Fatima Zahra is narrating the Quran, is reciting the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A time comes when there's no more dhikr, no more voices being heard. Asma enters the house, the room of Fatima Zahra, and she sees that the daughter of the Prophet has left this world. She sends a message to Imam Ali, who is in Masjid al-Nabawi. Imam Hassan and Hussein are called to the house. When they come into the house, they ask Asma, where is our mother? There is no response from Asma. They again ask young Hassan and Hussein, alayhim assalam, where is our mother? Finally, they are going into the room and they see the body of their mother. And they say that we have been orphaned. We are now yatim. At once, when the news is given to Ali ibn Abi Talib in Masjid al-Nabawi in front of the Prophet's grave, when they tell Ali alayhi salam that Fatima has left this world, Imam Ali himself falls unconscious. Imam then, when after a while wakes up and he says, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. Ya Fatima, ya bint Rasulullah, who will be there to comfort me? Mere sahare aap hi the, ab mere sahare bhi chal base. The Imam patiently tells Zainab and Kulthum and Hassan and Hussein to say Khuda Hafiz to bid farewell to their mother. The Imam prepared as the ghusl of Fatima Zahra as per her will. She is being buried at night. Only a handful of people, including Hassan and Hussein, Zainab and Kulthum, Ammar, Salman, Miqdad and Abu Dharr are the only ones who are permitted to go to the burial. In the middle of the night, the Imam is burying Fatima Zahra. When he is saying Khuda Hafiz, the people have never seen Ali in this state. He is crying in torments of tears. And he's bidding farewell to the daughter of the Prophet. And he's looking towards Rawza Rasul. Masjid al-Nabawi, Ya Rasulallah. The amanat that you gave me, I am returning this amanat to you. Ya Rasulallah, the amanat has been damaged. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. The sabr of Ali is being tested. And now the jihad of Ali alayhi salam starts again. والذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. Oh Allah, accept this ibadat from us. Forgive us our sins. Give us the tawfiq to act on the teachings and the seerah of Fatima Zahra salamullahi alayha. Ya Allah, we ask you, we beg you, give us the shafa'at of Fatima Zahra on Yawm al-Qiyamah, inshaAllah. Make us worthy of that shafa'at. Make us love those who loved Fatima and those who are near and dear to Fatima. Make us hate the enemies of Fatima Zahra salamullahi alayha. Rabbana taqabbal minna innaka antas samiul alim. We give condolences to the Imam Sahib al-Umar on the demise of his and the shahadat of his great grandmother, and we ask Imam Sahib al-Umar to accept us as the Ansar and Ashab. Let us be able to see Zamana al-Dhuhr with our own eyes. Rabbana taqabbal minna innaka antas samiul alim. If mu'mineen can join together and recite 5 times Amiju for those who are ill, for Allah Ta'ala to give them shifa, for our hajat to be accepted, for the hifaz of Imam Sahib al-Umar, and the safety and the security of all those who are suffering in so many parts of the world. As we have marked the shahadat anniversary of Ayatollah Nimr, of Shaykh Qasim Sulaimani, Abu Mehdi Muhandis, for Dr. Mohsen Fakhrizadi, all of the shuhada, all of those who have been killed, and for all those who there is nobody to recite, if we can do 5 times Amijibu for all of them to be elevated in the status. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعا ويكشف السوء 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 أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعا ويكشف السوء. الفاتحة للأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات والعلماء والشهداء. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. صدق الله العظيم. ماتم فاطمية يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين
يا حسين يا حسين
يا يا حسين. يا حسين يا حسين. توجه زيارة.
السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفوة الله. السلام عليك يا وارث نوح نبي الله. السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله. السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله. السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله. السلام عليك يا وارث محمد حبيب الله. السلام عليك يا وارث أمير المؤمنين ولي الله. السلام عليك يا ابن محمد المصطفى. السلام عليك يا ابن علي المرتضى. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء. السلام عليك يا ابن خديجة الكبرى. السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثارح والوتر الموتور. أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاح وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونحيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين. فلعن الله أمتان قتلات ولعن الله أمتان ظلمات ولعن الله أمتان سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأصلاب الشامخة والأرحام المطهرة لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها ولم تلبسك من مدلهمات ثيابها. وأشهد أنك من دعائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين. وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرضي الزكي الهادي المهدي. وأشهد أن الأئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وأعلام الهدى والعروة الوثقى والهجة على أهل الدنيا. وأشهد الله وملائكته وأنبياءه ورسله أني بكم مؤمن وبيا بكم موقن بشراء الدين وخواتين عملي وقلبي لقلبكم سلم وأمري لأمركم متبع. صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم. زيارة الأكبر. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله. السلام عليك يا ابن نبي الله. السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا ابن الحسين الشهيد. السلام عليك أيها الشهيد وابن الشهيد. السلام عليك أيها المظلوم وابن المظلوم. لعن الله أمتان قتلات ولعن الله أمتان ظلمات ولعن الله أمتان سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. زيارة تمام شريطي كربلاء. السلام عليك يا أولياء الله وأحباءه. السلام عليك يا أصفياء الله وأوداءه. السلام عليك يا أنصار دين الله. السلام عليكم يا أنصار رسول الله. السلام عليكم يا أنصار أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليكم يا أنصار فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي محمد الحسن بن علي الولي الزكي الناصح. السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي عبد الله بأبي أنت وأمي طبتم وطابت الأرض التي فيها دفنتم وفزتم فوزا عظيما. فيا ليتني كنت معكم فأفوز معكم. زيارة حضرة عباس. السلام عليك يا أبا الفضل العباس ابن أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا ابن سيد الوصيين. السلام عليك يا ابن أول القوم إسلامه وأقدمهم إيمانه وأقومهم بدين الله وأحوطهم على الإسلام. أشهد لقد نصحت لله ولرسوله ولأخيك فنعم الأخ المواصي. فلعن الله أمتان قتلات ولعن الله أمتان ظلمات ولعن الله أمة استحلت منك المحارم وانتحكت حرمة الإسلام. فنعم الصابر المجاهد المحامي الناصر والأخ الدافع عن أخيه المجيب إلى طاعات ربه الراغب فيما زهد فيه غيره من الثواب الجزيل والثناء الجميل. والحقق الله بدرجات آبائك في جنات النعيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل الساعة وليا وحافظا وقاعدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. أحسنتم. Jazakumullah. Thank you, everybody.